Hi everybody, I am back again with another of this video series on breast cancer rehab particularly, and I'm delighted to have my learned colleague Louise, who's joining me today to talk about her research, about the importance of translating research into clinical practice, about educating women who've gone through the breast cancer treatment journey, and what we can do better, what we need to do better, and what the research supports. Louise, can you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and the exciting things that you're up to?
Certainly. Hi, Michelle. Nice to meet you, and thanks very much for inviting me on to chat with you today. So my name's Louise Brennan. I'm a physiotherapist, and at the moment I'm doing a PhD in rehabilitation technology for breast cancer. And I'm just coming up to the end of my third year of that. So I've been working away on that for a few years. But before that, I was working as a physiotherapist in the NHS in London and in Kent. And a lot of my work was with cancer patients or people with cancer. And it really, it did trouble me a lot how little care there was for the rehabilitation stage of their treatment. Yeah. There's been huge advances in the life-saving treatments, the chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and the surgeries, and it's phenomenal. And we're so lucky to live in a time when people can get the life-saving treatment.
Absolutely.
And as a result, we're seeing the survivorship rates increase. But what we then have is a lot of people living with the consequences of cancer treatment. Yeah. And we don't have the rehabilitation services in place. So I was really interested to do a PhD in this field to find out a little bit more about how we can develop these services. And the technology bit comes in, I guess, because, you know, we all know that the health services, they don't have the funding at the moment and to fund rehabilitation. Now, it can be gotten, this is not a lost cause, but it's just, is there another way in which we could maybe use technology as a more accessible way of allowing people to access information online on websites or on an app? And it can be a small change, but it could be quite impactful if it's rolled out right. And in the meantime, obviously we are campaigning for the rehabilitation services that we need and that the country and deserve.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, there's a couple of really interesting points there that, you know, the continuum of rehab, I suppose, from the immediate post-op, because, you know, surgery is still the bedrock of breast cancer treatment. So the immediate introduction to rehab and movement, but all the way through, you know, because it's very much about surviving the morbidity of breast cancer treatment, isn't it? Mm. And I think what's exciting about your research is, particularly the fact that it's going to be app-based, is that it can give people with cancer some agency and some power over their own journey as well, instead of being passive recipients of things being done to them, you know, chemo, radiation, surgery. This actually gives them a chance to go and seek out information and seek out strategies for improving their quality of life, because, you know, that's the whole point, is that it's not just about the quantity of life you have after breast cancer treatment, it's about the quality as well, you know. And I talked to Nicole Stout about this recently as well, and we were talking about the aggregate of burdens that women particularly will be facing going through breast cancer treatment, you know, the after effects of surgery, chemo, radiation, hormonal treatment. And do you see the app as being an information hub, an exercise strategy resource? You know, how will this work?
All right. So, well, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're developing. Now, we've got a finished prototype ready, but we're going into the first stage of evaluation now. These things take a little while, but we do have the prototype, you know, ready for evaluation now. And what it is a biofeedback system to help people with their exercises after surgery. Okay. So it works with a small little sensor that people can wear on their wrists just while they're doing the exercises. And then on the app, you see videos and instructions to guide you through your exercise program. And the benefit of having the little sensor is that you've then got a character on screen who's following you as you're doing your exercises, and it's counting the repetitions. So then with the repetition counting, then that all gets logged into a little progress report. So you can look back and say, oh, I'm doing more of this exercise now than I was before. Give you a little bit of perspective on the improvement that you've made.
Nice.
And if you choose to, you can then share that with your physiotherapist who can view that remotely. That's quite a nice feature, I think, because, you know, in Ireland we have these cancer specialist centres, and a lot of people have to travel quite far just to get an appointment with a specialist or with a breast cancer specialist physiotherapist. So if you can do a little bit of that online, and then, you know, in the future, the idea is that something like this will be combined, say, with like what we're doing, a Skype consultation. And it can just, you know, help people from having to travel so far. The key thing of this is that it's a support for people when they're doing their exercises at home. Time and time again, we see that people are just not doing the exercises as, and now I'm speaking globally in all types of physiotherapy treatment now. See that people don't really do the exercises. Listen, we're all like that. And it's not because we're not motivated or, you know, there's better things we want to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. You know, people are not movement experts. They've got a million and one other things happening. There's pain, and particularly in the case of, you know, individuals who are having cancer treatment, they're undergoing the treatment and the side effects of that. They probably have to go, they may have to go to hospital every day for a radiation therapy schedule. They may be carers or have family to look after. So how are you going to fit in doing exercises every day on top of that? It's really hard. So the app is there for you. It can send you a little notification. Do you have time to do the, you know, 5 minutes of exercises now? And you've got just a reminder of all the exercises there and the videos. So it guides you through it all.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what we're working on now, and that's in UCD, in the Insight Centre for Data Analytics.
Fantastic. And so is the app, is it mostly shoulder centric, or does it look at general exercise as well? Is it just range of motion strength for the shoulder, or do you see kind of, you know, branching out into cardio, resistance, whole body?
Oh gosh, Michelle, I have such a vision for this, and so many ways in which I would love to make it, you know, make it into this whole system that would be a great resource for anyone at any stage of their treatment. And that would be the key thing, that you have something that takes you from the point of surgery into the long-term management, so that you'd be looking like at this prospective surveillance model, where you could maybe be logging your symptoms, logging your limb circumference over a long period of time, and it's a long-term support for you. But at the moment, the prototype we have is it's just the early stage post-operative rehab. It's focused on improving range of movement and very early stage strengthening. But it has education sections, so you've got all your post-op information on lymphedema prevention and management, and other, you know, the key issues that people would, you know, would be looking at in those first few weeks after breast cancer surgery.
And I think that's it's a key time, isn't it? Because, you know, if we can really put the idea that exercise is front and center, you know, a really integral part of cancer treatment. It's not just an optional add-on, you know, a little bit of, oh yeah, you can do some exercise if you want to. That, you know, all the evidence really points to the fact that exercise is probably, you know, the closest thing we have to a magic bullet for dealing with the side effects of cancer treatment, whether it's shoulder dysfunction, fatigue, you know, I know kind of the recent ACSM guidelines were a little kind of, you know, there was insufficient evidence to say it's, you know, it supported exercise for cardiotoxicity or neuropathy. But I think, you know, there's enough clinical experience to suggest that if someone's having balance difficulty, you know, and the literature would say that even after a single dose exposure to taxanes, you can start to see some gait disturbances. If we can get exercise really positioned as, you know, it's there, it's up there with chemo, with radiation, with hormonal therapy, do you find there's good buy-in from the medical teams that you've talked to from an oncology perspective about really kind of bringing exercise into the fold?
Everything you say there is so right, Michelle. Exercise is crucial, and not just at the time of diagnosis and surgery, but from prevention,
absolutely,
all the way through to, you know, survivorship or end of life. It's beneficial, and it's shown to be beneficial all the way along. And I think actually all the multidisciplinary team are on board with that. not just the rehab professionals, but the doctors and the consultants as well. Really, everyone I talk to would agree that it is so important. And our problems here with kind of translating that message to the patient, I think there's a few barriers, and I think the main one would be probably time. These consultations with the medical team can be quite short, and there is some absolutely, like I said earlier, life-saving messages that need to go across first and foremost. So what you would ideally like then is that after your consultation with the doctors, then you're sent to go see a physiotherapist or a breast care nurse, or someone who can then advise you on other issues. But certainly, yeah, the doctors are on board with it. I think that it's about having a well-formed multidisciplinary team where the patient has access to all the team members when they need them as well.
Absolutely, because I think there's a bit of a disconnect almost, because I feel like the medical teams are all saying, yes, exercise is really important, ... and that's it. But like, in terms of actual specificity or dosage, I think that's sometimes where the message can get lost, or people are concerned about the fatigue element. I'm very tired, so maybe I should just rest instead. Whereas it's probably the opposite is true. So I think to have, maybe that exercise as an antidote for the fatigue, for all the other things, the side effects of cancer treatment. And again, maybe to have that continuum from physio all the way through to suitably qualified fitness professionals as well, who are confident. So I think the app is going to be a really great kind of bridge to embedding exercise as a key core concept. Yeah. So when will it be out? When can we see it?
Oh gosh, Michelle, I wish I could give you an answer for that. At the moment, it's like a research tool. It is, well, that's not fair to say, but it is very much in the stages of research and development, and it could be a little while, and it might undergo some modifications. I wish I could be in control of that, but I have to say there are a few other really useful apps, or even just information-based websites that are out there that people can use. And just to, of course, take care when you are searching for things online, particularly in the app stores, because, it's quite rogue out there. Some people are developing things that are, that really are not evidence-based whatsoever. And you don't know the credentials of the people who are developing them as well. So if you are looking in an app store, look for, the apps that come from, there's a very good one. I think it's called cancer.net. It's from the NIH, the National Institutes of Health in America, or from, from similar national health bodies. You can look at the NHS apps library as well. There's a couple of breast cancer apps on there too. And then if you're looking at websites, things like the Irish Cancer Society or Cancer Research UK, to focus your searches on that would be ideal.
Absolutely. So I can really see the incredible potential usefulness of your app. Particularly even in the prospective surveillance model, there's some interesting research out there about that. Do you feel that there's good awareness of the benefits of a prospective surveillance model for breast cancer recovery?
I have to say no. Probably in the research community, and you can get a little bit misled, because if you're working within the research community, you're talking to all these people who know about it. But honestly, and on the very most fundamental level, there's not even an awareness of the need for that. And by that I mean there's not an awareness of the consequences of breast cancer treatment and how it can affect you physically and psychologically, not to mention financially and socially. So no, there's not. I think, something I found in my research through interviewing women who have been through treatment for breast cancer, and it came up time and again, is that they were not told what to expect after the surgery. And that might be for a variety of reasons, why the messages weren't really communicated, and even a lot of the participants in the study did acknowledge that it's a really overwhelming time. It can be quite a short time frame from diagnosis to surgery for some people. So there's so much information going in there, and it might not all stay, but the message I heard over and again was that people didn't know what to expect. They didn't know that they might not be able to drive for a little while, or several participants didn't know what lymphedema was until a few weeks after their surgery, and someone said, oh, don't do that, you might get lymphedema. I said, what's this thing now? Another thing I have to be fearful of. And
and I think, you know, it's, we mentioned just before I started recording, I just read an article this morning that Liz O'Riordan, the former breast surgeon, wrote about her journey through breast cancer. And she was a consultant breast surgeon, and she was unaware of the long-term, you know, the medium to long-term effects of issues like chemotherapy, but particularly radiation. You know, and we sometimes hear radiation being referred to as the gift that keeps on giving. And I think that the fibrosis and the scarring and the shoulder restrictions, but also say, for example, if you're on a hormonal treatment, you know, things like tamoxifen, you know, really plunging into a fairly harsh menopausal situation, and what's happening from a pelvic health perspective. So, you know, full disclosure, I'm a pelvic health obsessive. Yeah. But, you know, what's happening in terms of sexual function? Because, you know, you're you know, in terms of lubrication or positioning, if you've had a tug reconstruction, you know, is anybody talking about sexual ergonomics or using lubricant appropriately? And again, it's that whole quality of life and the availability of good quality information, like you said. For me, I really think that as physios, I think we could probably do a little bit better, because I think sometimes, unlike our medical colleagues, we maybe have a bit more time with patients. How, in your clinical work with people going through cancer treatment, how receptive are the patients that you're seeing? How receptive are they to receiving education, or are they just kind of focusing on getting through this, and then I'll think about the rest when it's time? And, you know, how are you engaging on this subject with them?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone is different, and every patient kind of comes at it with a different approach. I've met patients who just want to take it one day at a time, and that's their coping strategy, and that's what gets them through this incredibly difficult time. But then there are some people who want all the information, and they feel more confident if they know they have everything and they have it there. And when I want to access that information, I have that leaflet. So so there's different approaches to be seen.
Sure.
I would like to comment on a couple of things you said there about the kind of the longer term consequences, and also the physiotherapy side of things. So it's all those longer term consequences that you mentioned, they're so valid, and that is particularly the messages that aren't getting across. We often see patients, you know, in a few weeks after the surgery, or maybe, you know, a couple of months, and then we say, brilliant, you're doing great now, you've got the range of movement back in your shoulder and the strength back in your shoulder, we can discharge you from physio now. And it's only months after that these other things that you've mentioned can come up, and particularly with the radiation therapy as well, because that can cause a decreased range of movement, and it's also a big risk factor for lymphedema onset. So
and heart disease,
you know,
and bone health.
My goodness. And so these patients might not still be under our care, and they're developing these. And as you said, the peripheral neuropathy, so, you know, balance or sensory changes can happen in the kind of medium to longer term. And, you know, several of my patients would have, for example, developed problems in the other shoulder from overuse. So rotator cuff problems, or one patient developed frozen shoulder. Back pain from just altered biomechanics. So there's something there. These women maybe didn't get the opportunity to see their rehab all the way through to the end. So that brings you back to the point you're saying about how physios could be doing better. Oh goodness, 100%. There is such a huge opportunity for physios to make a really big impact in the quality of life of women after breast cancer surgery. Yeah, definitely. And like I say before, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to say that physios aren't doing a good enough job, because it's not the case.
No. We could do better.
It's true, and it's true that we are restricted by, you know, the public health service is completely, you know, short staffed and does not have enough time to be, you know, for, you know, to give everyone many appointments over a longer period of time. So we either need to find a way to fund these things better or to change the way we're doing things.
I think so. And I think as well, you know, particularly in the early stages, if somebody is going through radiation, you know, if they're having daily radiation and they have to go to physio and deal with all the side effects.
Yeah.
I would love to see us, because I think we are quite good in the acute phase, as you said, but it's the medium to long term, particularly when we read, there was a paper that came out just a couple of weeks ago looking at the cardiovascular mortality of breast cancer patients. You know, that more women are dying from heart attacks after breast cancer treatment than they're dying from recurrence. And I think, you know, what do we know about heart disease? Well, that exercise is another great medical strategy for it. Yeah. But I think too, the other thing that maybe we should be aware of is that breast cancer is not just happening in isolation. These women are also aging. And, you know, we know that going through menopause outside of the breast cancer continuum, we do see an increase in rotator cuff tendinopathies, gluteal tendinopathies, plantar fasciitis or posterior tibial tendinopathies. So estrogen is obviously a huge driver of all these things. And of course, estrogen is very cardioprotective too. But do women realize, I wonder, the importance of a long-term exercise strategy in reducing morbidity and mortality after breast cancer treatment ends? Because I feel like a lot of women are just kind of, they're cut off. They're in active treatment and then they're not, and they're drifting and they're not aware of the importance. And you know, do you feel like there's a role maybe for us to team up with fitness professionals in providing a more cohesive continuum maybe?
Yeah, that sounds like a really great idea. That it's nearly like, so I'd say that, you know, you're saying, are people aware of the benefits of exercise? Yes, I think so. I think that message is getting across, but probably not in the detail, like in terms of like the most recent research. People will be aware that it's good for them. It may, you know, improve their strength and their energy probably as well. Yeah. But as long as they know to do it, it would be helpful. If I think it might motivate more people to exercise if they knew it can prevent assist in a vast area, a vast range of things, and it's nearly like, but you don't want to give people too much information all at the one time. So it's nearly like we need a program where you have different phases. So you've got your acute phase, and this is the information you get in that, and then you can get moved into your kind of subacute, and then into your maybe like long-term survivorship phase, and then you're getting kind of more information in that. And also the kind of type of exercise that you do throughout this period of time might change as well. We see a lot of people, you know, in the longer, the say chronic or survivorship phases of breast cancer, engaging in, you know, yoga and Pilates. Dragon boat racing is, there's like a community around that for women with breast cancer. Nordic walking as well can be a really nice exercise to engage in. I mean, ultimately, whatever people are interested in, whatever they enjoy and find fun, they'll keep it up. But and at that stage, you're so right that linking in with people in health centers or gyms will be key, because really, who wants to be under a medical model for the rest of their life?
Of course not.
No, you want to move away from that. So if you know that you're going to the same health and fitness center that your husband or wife is going to, that your neighbors are going to, and just that you can trust that those fitness professionals there have the training to safely guide you.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly, you know, if we look at the ACSM recommendations for strength training, you know, twice a week, that it's safe, it's effective, and it's vital, you know. So to get that message across, because I don't know if this has been your experience, but I come across a lot of women who are maybe they're seen in that acute post-op phase. Maybe they still have drains in, and they're told not to lift their shoulder above 90 degrees. And the message is heard sometimes in that I can never lift my arm above 90 degrees ever again, or I can never lift anything heavier than a kettle ever again. And I think, you know, there's some myth busting to be done around that as well.
Yeah, certainly. I remember one patient, she'd been told not to carry shopping bags.
Yeah.
She didn't carry them for months and months and months, and she had this great fear that she was never going to be able to go shopping again. She was only in her early 40s, and she thought, I'm never going to be able to go shopping by myself again.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I think that, yeah, so making sure that, you know, all the right messages are getting across at the right time, because, you know, that is a key message. If you've just had surgery, please do not carry anything heavy. If you still got your draining, don't lift your arm up high. But then the message needs to change.
Yes.
So making sure that the right messages are getting across. Another thing that comes to mind is that, you know, these messages have changed a lot in recent years, now that we have a lot more evidence around the benefits of exercise, and certainly that it is very safe. And whereas in the past people might have been warned off it, that it might cause certain kind of consequences. So there is actually probably a large, you know, cohort of women out there who actually never got these most recent messages. Maybe they had their treatment 10 or 15 years ago and they're still avoiding doing these things. So some kind of, you know, public awareness campaign,
Absolutely,
reach out to them would be really important. And you know, when we're talking about these, like the different phases of exercise, I can't help but compare it to other models in physiotherapy, where we have cardiac rehab, pulmonary rehab, or even in many places, I mean, certainly in the NHS where I worked, if you have a total knee replacement, you're more or less automatically sent to a rehab class for 6 to 8 weeks after your surgery.
as well as maybe even a prehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are so effective, and they're cost effective, and they're efficient, and they're, you know, a great way of monitoring patient progress, and week by week instilling the messages that you need to get across. I don't know why we're not, nowhere really in the world is doing this for breast cancer surgery. And the numbers of breast cancer surgeries that happen every year is phenomenally high. This isn't a rare condition. This is the most common cancer in women across the world, and it's frustrating and it's puzzling why the rehab services are so poor.
Well, I think, you know, I had a little bit of a light bulb moment actually reading the Liz Reardon article, because I ponder the same question that you just posed, like why isn't it better? And she was saying because breast cancer surgeons are, well, first of all, they're focused on, you know, on saving a life and removing the cancer, and then the focus is very much on how the breast will look afterwards. You know, so are we looking at reconstruction, you know, and all the different options with that, and then that's it. You know, save the life and the cosmetic appearance of the breast. But in terms of functionality, I don't think that that's that kind of medium to long term approach, because, you know, I think breast cancer surgeons do amazing work. You know, particularly with the advances that we're seeing with reconstruction now and autologous tissue repairs. But I sometimes wonder if they're thinking of the medium to long term function and quality of life issues that are happening. And I also just I would love to get your thoughts on something that just kind of popped into my head when you were speaking, because you know how in physio, the biopsychosocial model is front and center of a lot of what we're doing right now. And while we've been very bio so far this morning, I think we can't emphasize the psychosocial importance of exercising in a group, taking back control, and doing something for yourself, you know, so that you have some agency over your outcomes as well. And that's where I think your app is really going to be vital for women. Are you aware of any research kind of looking at the role of education or stress management in terms of symptom management with breast cancer, with women who have breast cancer?
In terms of symptom, so are you saying what type of symptom management would you be discussing there?
So, you know, again, just kind of you know how in shoulder dysfunction in general, we know there's a huge psychosocial input into that. I'm wondering if women knew ahead of time, you know, the medium to long term effects, and they could be a little bit more self-proactive instead of, because obviously it's not happening from a medical perspective in terms of information dissemination.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be an effective strategy?
Oh, certainly. I can't say I'm really aware of any research of that in breast cancer. So we're saying that by kind of monitoring and by giving people the information and self-management strategies, would we then see an improvement in their, say, in their symptoms?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that specifically in breast cancer. There's some really interesting research though within cancer in general, self-management, where there was a really interesting study published a couple of years ago where patients with advanced tumors were asked to monitor 12 symptoms every day for a period of approximately 10 weeks. It was a large study with a lot of participants, 700 participants, I think.
Wow.
And so all they had to do was just log on to this web app every day and just monitor and register how they were on a scale for 12 different symptoms. The simplest thing, it just took a few minutes each day, and the outcomes were phenomenal. It was a randomized control trial, so some people just managed them normally and some people used this web app where every day they had to do this. And they found that the people that were using the web app had better outcomes. They survived for longer, they had less hospital readmissions, and they had less visits to A&E. And that was just through being aware, just through checking in on yourself every day. How is this? How is my pain? How is my appetite? So we could potentially extrapolate that to to other forms of self-management. And something you were saying there about the psychosocial side, it just came to me there how powerful social interventions can be. And I met with some women who are in a sports team for breast cancer, that specifically for people who've been through breast cancer treatment. And it sounds like they get a huge amount of social support and also education and information. If they want to know something, they go to their teammates. They say, listen, have you been through this?
Yeah.
Or I've been through that, I'll tell you what. Or maybe you can talk to this person, or this place has this service. And it was incredibly powerful. And we see that a lot in physio. I don't know if you find that if you've ever run an exercise class, the first thing people will say is that it was good crack. They enjoyed it. They met some nice people. And you're kind of thinking, I mean, do you feel stronger? Did it help your fitness? That comes weeks down the line. The first thing they'll say is, I enjoyed it. It was great.
And I think, if we can get people, hooked on exercise, on the enjoyable aspects of exercise, and really kind of cement that habit, hopefully for a lifelong period, then I think we're doing our job well. Louise, amazing. Like, I just think what you're doing is fantastic. I'm super excited about the app. Is there anything else that you can think of that would be, that your parting pearl of wisdom for us? Do you feel, let me ask you a question while you're letting that ferment in your subconscious. Do you feel that do you feel that physios in general know enough about the side effects of cancer treatment? Is it being taught well at an undergrad level?
Oh, no. No, I don't. It's certainly not an undergrad level. And it's very difficult because there's so much to fit into that 3 or 4 year undergraduate course.
I know.
All we can do is just kind of, you just hope that it is being, the side effects of cancer treatment are by and large being taught, I think, in most of the degree courses. And then I don't know to what extent in each particular course, then you are, a lot, as you know, with physiotherapy, we learn a lot on the job. Through in-services, through courses we do once we qualify. Our undergraduate course, unfortunately, can't give us all the information in the world, but it does prepare us to be competent and safe practitioners. And then from then on, it will instill the thing that if we are in practice and we find there's something we don't know about, we've got to go and learn it for ourselves. We've got to work on our CPD and learn more about this. I think it's hard for physios because very often we see people, well, my background is as inpatient physiotherapist, so working in hospitals, and we see people within the acute, the subacute, or else the end of life stages, and you know, we miss the opportunity to learn about these kind of survivorship issues, the chronic things.
From a health promotion point of view.
And I think that might be one of the, you know, my kind of points that I really want to get across, is that there are so many ways in which breast cancer treatment can affect the body and the person holistically. And it's different for everyone. And it is so for both people who are having this treatment and for physios, it's really important to keep in touch with the person over a longer period of time, even if it's checking in every 6 months or so. But things can come up, and you know, people might not know what they are, or they might not realize that they're linked to the treatment they had, or they might be very often fearful of mentioning it to someone for a variety of reasons. So these kind of structures within our healthcare system are missing, and I think it's something we should be looking to develop.
And I think that's it. You know, I mean, if funding wasn't an issue, I think, you know, to see more emphasis being placed on health promotion after cancer treatment ends, you know, and that kind of long-term outlook as well, in terms of reducing impairments. Because it's never a straight line, isn't it? You know, you can be fine, and then something happens to your shoulder and you get a little bit of a tweak, and then you might need to go back for a couple of sessions, get back on the path again. But I think, I mean, there's always more we can do. But I think generally, you know, with the research that's coming through, I think I'm quite excited about the possibilities for oncology rehab. We know what it takes, about 17 years for the research to trickle down into clinical practice.
Well, hopefully it won't take.
Not.
This is really, really important research showing the benefits of exercise. So I hope maybe we can work together so it won't take that long. Particularly in this community phase, I think, when people are moving home, discharged from hospital, maybe their treatment is over, and they feel that they've lost all contact with health professionals, to instill something within the community.
Definitely. And I think
exercise classes or information evenings as well. That would be, I think, really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think and I think having resources like your app will absolutely be a huge benefit. So hopefully we're not going to be waiting 17 years for us.
Oh God, yeah.
No pressure.
Don't even joke about it.
Louise, if people want to follow you and find out more about the work that you're doing, what's the best place on social media to keep an eye on your progress?
Sure. Well, I'm on Twitter, and it's at Louise_Brennan_, or you can email me, louise.brennan@ucdconnect.ie. But listen, at this stage, all you have to do is put someone's name to Google and you'll find them, and certainly find my Twitter if you Google me. And I'd be delighted to hear from anyone who ever wants to chat.
Brilliant.
Or share some information.
I can't thank you enough. I mean, I feel very excited about the future developments, and I want to thank you for all that you're doing, because I really feel like this is moving physio forward pretty much exponentially, especially in terms of oncology rehab. So thank you for all your hard work.
Oh gosh, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Michelle. It was great to chat.
Great, thank you.
Bye.